Commander Veltar ran his clawed hand across the smooth surface of his personal recording device. The metal was warm from the heat lamps that kept his quarters comfortable. Outside his window, the stars moved slowly past as the Great War Fleet traveled through the void between worlds. He pressed the activation switch and began to speak. War Journal, Entry 1. Commander Veltar of the 3rd Imperial Fleet recording for historical purposes. Today we begin our 18th conquest campaign. Destination: a small blue world the locals call Earth. Veltar paused and looked at his reflection in the dark screen before him. His scales were deep green with darker stripes running down his neck. His yellow eyes showed the confidence of a warrior who had never known defeat. At 8 feet tall with natural armor and razor-sharp claws, he was the perfect example of saurian evolution. His people had crawled from the burning deserts of Soros Prime as the ultimate predators. The High Command believes this will be our easiest conquest yet, he continued. The target species calls themselves humans. Our scouts report they are small, soft creatures with no natural weapons. No claws, no scales, no protective shell. They appear to be mammals, which explains their weakness. He stood and walked to the large tactical display that dominated one wall of his quarters. The holographic image showed a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. Small icons marked the major population centers. There were many of them, scattered across the planet's surface. Intelligence reports indicate the humans lack unified government. They are divided into hundreds of separate territories, many of which are actively hostile to each other. Sub-Commander Neith Ara estimates they spend more resources fighting among themselves than they do on advancing their technology. Veltar touched a control and the display zoomed in on several human cities. The buildings looked fragile, made of glass and metal rather than the solid stone fortresses his own people preferred. Everything about this world spoke of weakness. Their military technology is primitive by our standards. They still use chemical propulsion for their spacecraft. Their weapons rely on simple kinetic projectiles rather than plasma or energy beams. Most interesting of all, they have no experience fighting alien species. We will be their first contact with life beyond their own world. The commander returned to his desk and activated another display. This one showed the composition of his fleet. 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a city from orbit. 40 smaller cruisers for close support. Hundreds of troop transports carrying the finest warriors of the Saurian Empire. It was, by any measure, overwhelming force for such a weak target. War Prime Kethalon has assigned only a fraction of our available forces to this campaign. He believes a show of strength will be sufficient. The humans will see our ships, understand their situation, and surrender immediately. It is the pattern we have seen 17 times before. Veltar's mind drifted to those previous conquests. The crystalline beings of Zerion had lasted 3 days before surrendering. The massive slug-like creatures of Moltar Prime had given up after just one orbital bombardment demonstration. The proud insect warriors of the Hive Worlds had fought bravely but logically, retreating when defeat became certain. Fear, he said into the recorder, has always been our greatest weapon. Not the fear we feel, for true Saurian warriors know no fear. But the fear we create in others. It is more efficient than plasma cannons, more deadly than nuclear weapons. When an enemy truly understands that resistance means complete destruction, they choose survival over pride. He called up files on his previous campaigns. Images of burning cities, defeated armies laying down their weapons, leaders signing surrender documents. Each conquest had followed the same pattern. Arrival, demonstration of power, negotiation, surrender. Clean, efficient, with minimal losses on both sides. The psychology is simple, Veltar continued. All intelligent species have survival instincts. When faced with certain death, they choose life. When shown that resistance is futile, they accept defeat. Fear is the emotion that drives this logic. Fear of pain, fear of death, fear of extinction. Sub-Commander Neith Ara had prepared detailed psychological profiles of the human species. They were social creatures who lived in large groups. They formed emotional bonds with offspring and mates. They created art and music and literature. All of this indicated a species that valued life and would not throw it away uselessly. According to our xenopsychologists, humans are particularly susceptible to fear-based diplomacy. They have active imagination centers in their brains, which means they can visualize consequences without experiencing them directly. Show them what defeat looks like, and they will surrender to avoid living through it. Veltar accessed the battle plans that had been approved by the High Command. The fleet would emerge from hyperspace in a standard intimidation formation, ships positioned over major population centers, weapons charged and ready. A simple message would be broadcast in the dominant human languages: surrender or face extinction. Previous studies of human behavior indicate they will attempt to negotiate. This is expected. All species try to bargain when first confronted with superior force. We will listen to their offers, consider their proposals, and then explain why. Resistance is impossible. Most estimates suggest complete surrender within one standard week. The commander stood and walked to his armor rack. The battlesuit was a work of art, crafted from the finest materials and decorated with the symbols of his many victories. Soon it would bear one more mark, representing the conquest of Earth. Tomorrow we drop out of hyperspace and begin final approach. The humans will detect our arrival within hours. Their primitive sensors will confirm what their worst nightmares never dared imagine. They are not alone in the universe, and they are hopelessly outmatched. Veltar returned to his recorder. For the final entry of the evening, I have been asked by the Historical Archive to document this campaign for future study. They believe the conquest of Earth will serve as a perfect example of efficient imperial expansion. Minimal force, maximum psychological impact, rapid surrender. A textbook operation that new commanders can study. He looked out at the stars again. Somewhere ahead in the darkness waited the small blue world and its soft, weak inhabitants. By this time next week, they would be citizens of the Saurian Empire, grateful to be alive and eager to serve their new masters. Fear was just a word we used to describe the emotion we instilled in others. Tomorrow we will teach a new species its meaning. End recording. The device powered down with a soft click. Veltar prepared for sleep, confident in the knowledge that he served the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. The humans would learn what every other species had learned. Resistance was futile, surrender was survival, and fear was the wisdom to know the difference. In 18 campaigns, no enemy had ever proven him wrong. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship as the fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The blue and green world of Earth hung before them like a jewel against the black of space. 12 massive Saurian dreadnoughts took their positions, above the major human population centers. The sight should have been terrifying to any species watching from below. All ships report ready status, announced Sub-Commander Nithara from her station. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. The humans have detected our arrival. Their primitive communication networks are buzzing with activity. Veltar nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly how it should begin. First shock, then panic, then the inevitable realization that resistance was hopeless. He had seen it 17 times before. Open communications to the human governments, he ordered. Standard surrender protocol, all languages. The message was simple and direct, transmitted simultaneously to every major population center on the planet. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Saurian Empire. Lay down your weapons and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. You have one rotation of your planet to comply. Veltar expected the usual response. Frantic communications between human leaders, desperate attempts to understand what they were facing, and then the inevitable request for negotiations. Instead, something unprecedented happened. A single voice answered from the planet below. It was calm, measured, and spoke in the dominant human language. This is Captain Kim Dae-ho of the Earth Defense Corps. We have received your message and reviewed your demands. Our response is simple: we decline. The bridge fell silent. In 18 conquest campaigns, no species had ever simply refused the initial surrender demand. There was always negotiation, always desperate bargaining for better terms. Never a flat rejection. Repeat transmission, Veltar ordered. Certain there had been some translation error. The same calm voice responded immediately. I repeat, we decline. Earth will not surrender. If you wish to take our world, you will have to fight for every meter of it. Sub-Commander Nithara quickly accessed her tactical displays. Commander, we are detecting massive movement across the human population centers. But they are not evacuating civilians as expected. They appear to be organizing. Veltar moved to the tactical station and studied the readings. Human military forces were indeed mobilizing, but not in the pattern any conquered species had ever shown. Instead of gathering to defend their capitals or industrial centers, they were spreading out across the entire planet. It made no strategic sense. "What are they doing?" he muttered. Lieutenant Park So-min of the human naval forces provided the answer through intercepted communications. Her voice was crisp and professional as she coordinated with defense installations worldwide. "All units, this is Fleet Command. Execute Protocol 7. Transform every city, every town, every village into a fortress. If they want our world, they pay for it in blood." The word blood sent an uncomfortable chill through the Saurian bridge. Crew. Most species spoke of honor, duty, or survival when facing invasion. Humans spoke of blood. "Deploy the first wave," Veltar ordered. "Standard intimidation landing. Establish beachheads at major population centers. Show them what our warriors look like up close." The first Saurian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Each carried 50 of the Empire's finest warriors, massive scaled beings armed with advanced weapons and protected by energy shields. They had broken the morale of countless alien armies with their very appearance. The first landing zone was a human city called Seoul. The dropships touched down in what appeared to be an empty plaza surrounded by tall buildings. The Saurian warriors emerged expecting to find cowering civilians ready to surrender at first sight. Instead, they found Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo and his Marines waiting for them. The humans were smaller than expected, just as the intelligence reports had indicated. They wore primitive armor and carried simple kinetic weapons, but something was wrong with their eyes. There was no fear in them. Instead, there was something that made several veteran Saurian warriors take a step backward. "Welcome to Earth," Sergeant Cho said in perfectly clear Saurian, a language he had learned from intercepted communications during the past few hours. "I hope you brought enough body bags." The first human weapons fired. Saurian energy shields deflected the primitive projectiles easily, just as expected. But the humans did not retreat when their weapons proved ineffective. Instead, they adapted. Within minutes, human fighters were using captured Saurian equipment, turning the invaders' own technology against them. More disturbing was how quickly they learned. A human soldier would see a Saurian weapon fired once, grab it from a fallen warrior, and use it effectively within seconds. They showed no fear of unfamiliar technology, no hesitation about using alien equipment in alien ways. Commander Lee Tae-jun coordinated the global response from a hidden command center. His background was in diplomacy, but when faced with invasion, he transformed into something else entirely. His communications to resistance cells worldwide were calm and precise. "All units, the enemy shields stop kinetic weapons but not electromagnetic pulses. Engineering teams are distributing modified equipment. Hit them with EMP, then finish them with conventional weapons." Within hours, human forces across the planet were implementing new tactics based on real-time battlefield intelligence. It was a level of adaptability no conquered species had ever demonstrated. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee worked frantically in her research laboratory, analyzing captured Saurian technology and biology. Her reports went out to every human military unit in real time. Enemy warriors showed decreased reaction time in temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. Recommend immediate deployment of cooling systems in all combat zones. The Saurian landing. Forces found themselves fighting in battles that grew more difficult by the hour. Each engagement taught the humans something new, and that knowledge spread across their entire species with impossible speed. Veltar watched the tactical displays with growing concern. Red markers indicated Saurian positions under attack. Yellow markers showed units requesting reinforcement. Most disturbing of all, several markers had gone dark completely. "Status report," he demanded. "Heavy resistance on all fronts," Nithara replied, her voice tight with confusion. "The humans are not fighting like any species in our database. They do not retreat when outgunned. They do not surrender when surrounded. They adapt to our tactics faster than we can implement them. A communication came in from the surface. The voice was strained, filled with something no Saurian warrior should ever feel. Command, this is Ground Force 7. We are under heavy attack by human forces using our own weapons against us. They are not behaving like prey animals. They are behaving like hunters. Veltar stared at the blue world below. In less than one day, his perfect invasion plan had become something else entirely. The humans were not cowering in fear. They were learning, adapting, and fighting with a coordination that defied everything he knew about warfare. He opened his war journal and began a new entry, Day 1 of the Earth campaign. The humans have refused surrender. This was unexpected but not unprecedented. What is unprecedented is their response to our landing forces. They do not fight like any conquered species in Imperial history. They fight like they were born for war. Outside his window, the small blue world continued to spin. But now Veltar was beginning to understand that perhaps they had made a mistake. Perhaps fear was not just something they gave to others. Perhaps fear was something they were about to learn themselves. Commander Veltar stared at the casualty reports with disbelief. 3 days into the invasion, and the numbers made no sense. Saurian forces had taken several human cities, but the cost had been enormous. More importantly, every victory felt hollow. Explain this to me, he said to Subcommander Nithara, pointing at the tactical display. We control the port city of Busan, but why are our forces still taking casualties? Nithara's scales had taken on a pale color, a sign of stress among their species. The humans do not recognize defeat, Commander. Even after we destroyed their military installations and occupied their government buildings, civilian fighters continue to attack our patrols. This was unheard of in Saurian experience. When a city fell, its population surrendered. The concept of continued resistance after military defeat was alien to every species they had conquered. Captain Kim Dae-ho provided the answer through his actions rather than words. He had been forced to abandon Seoul when orbital bombardment made the city untenable, but he had not retreated to safety. Instead, he moved his forces into the mountains and began striking at Saurian supply lines. His tactics were unlike anything in the Imperial military database. Rather than attempting to recapture territory, he focused on making Saurian occupation as costly as possible. Supply convoys disappeared in the night. Communication relays were sabotaged with primitive but effective explosives. Saurian patrols found themselves ambushed by enemies who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. These humans fight like ghosts, reported Ground Commander Zask from the occupied territories. They attack and disappear. We control the ground we stand on, but nothing else. Lieutenant Park So-min coordinated naval operations from a hidden command ship somewhere in Earth's vast oceans. The Saurians had never encountered a species that used large bodies of water as tactical advantages. Their own desert world had no oceans, and previous conquests had involved land-based or space-based species. All coastal batteries, this is Fleet Command. Her voice crackled over encrypted channels that the Saurians still could not break. Enemy ships are moving to support ground forces. Execute tsunami protocol. Veltar watched in amazement as human submarines, primitive vessels powered by nuclear reactors, managed to sink 2 Saurian cruisers using weapons that should have been ineffective against their shields. Somehow, the humans had modified their torpedoes to create electromagnetic pulses that disabled Saurian defense systems. How are they learning so quickly? He asked his science officer. Unknown, Commander, but analysis of human communications suggests they are sharing tactical information across their entire species in real time. Each battle provides data that benefits every other human military unit on the planet. This was the most terrifying aspect of fighting humans. They treated warfare like education. Every Saurian tactic, weapon, and strategy became a lesson that strengthened their entire species. It was as if the planet itself was learning to fight. Commander Lee Tae-jun had transformed from diplomat to strategic coordinator. His hidden command center received reports from every continent on Earth, Unlike the centralized command structure of the Saurian Empire, human resistance was organized like a living network, cut off one part, and others adapted to fill the gap. European Command, this is global strategic. The enemy has deployed plasma weapons in your sector. Asian Command reports success using reflective materials to deflect plasma beams. Implementing, worldwide. Within hours, human forces across the planet were using mirrors, polished metal, and even sheets of reflective plastic to turn Saurian energy weapons against themselves. It was improvisation on a species-wide scale. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee had established mobile research laboratories that followed human military units. Her teams dissected captured Saurian equipment and biological samples, immediately transmitting their findings to manufacturers and military engineers worldwide. Analysis complete on enemy warrior physiology, her reports broadcast to every human military unit. Saurian vision is adapted to desert environments with high light intensity. They suffer significant vision impairment in low light conditions. Recommend all-night operations and deployment of light-dampening technology in combat zones. The war began to shift. Human forces stopped trying to meet Saurian armies in direct confrontation and instead focused on environmental warfare. They fought at night when possible, in underground tunnels, in dense forests, in heavy rain, in any conditions that negated Saurian advantages. Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo led urban warfare specialists in a campaign that turned every human city into a death trap. Buildings became fortresses connected by underground passages. Streets were filled with improvised explosives triggered by proximity sensors built from consumer electronics. "You want our cities?" he broadcast on open channels, knowing the Saurians were listening. "Come and take them. But know that every building, every room, every hallway will cost you blood." The Saurian ground forces found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their experience. Enemies appeared in places that should have been secure. Human fighters emerged from sewers, ventilation systems, and hidden passages that honeycombed their cities. They used construction equipment as weapons, turned civilian vehicles into bombs, and fought with a creativity that military doctrine could not predict. Veltar decided to escalate. If the humans would not surrender their cities, he would destroy them from orbit. The first orbital bombardment turned the human city of Mumbai into burning ruins. Surely this demonstration of absolute power would break human morale and force surrender. Instead, it had the opposite effect. Within hours, human governments worldwide were broadcasting a unified message. Every human leader, from the largest nations to the smallest tribes, spoke with one voice. The message was simple and terrifying in its certainty. "You have shown us that you will kill our civilians. Now we will show you what we do to those who threaten our families." Captain Kim Dae-ho spoke for all of humanity when he addressed the Saurian fleet directly. "You made this war about extinction. You chose to target our children, our elderly, our innocent. You have made a mistake that your species will remember for 1,000 generations. What happened next changed the nature of the conflict entirely. Human military forces stopped trying to minimize civilian casualties in their own operations. They stopped following the rules of warfare that had limited their tactics. They stopped being civilized. Lieutenant Park So-min coordinated a global offensive that struck every Saurian position simultaneously. Human forces attacked with a ferocity that shocked even veteran alien warriors. They used chemical weapons, biological warfare, and tactics so brutal that several Saurian commanders requested permission to retreat. The humans had been holding back. The orbital bombardment had not broken their spirit. It had unleashed it. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee's research teams began developing weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering to Saurian physiology. Sonic weapons that disrupted their hearing, chemical agents that burned their scales, biological warfare that targeted their specific genetic markers. "You want to fight without rules," her broadcast reached every human military unit. "Here are the tools to do it properly." Veltar stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. The humans were no longer fighting to defend their world. They were fighting to destroy everything that threatened it, including apparently the concept of mercy. He opened his war journal with hands that trembled slightly. Day 7 of the Earth campaign. The humans have taught us something new about warfare. We believe that showing them the consequences of resistance would break their will to fight. Instead, it has shown them that this war is about the survival of their species. They no longer fight like soldiers defending territory. They fight like a species facing extinction. He paused, looking at the damage reports streaming in from every Saurian position on the planet. I am beginning to understand that we may have made a serious error in judgment. The humans were not weak because they lacked natural weapons. They were restrained because they possessed something far more dangerous: the imagination to create weapons we never dreamed possible, and the will to use them without hesitation when their survival is threatened. Outside his window, the blue world continued to burn, but now Veltar was no longer certain who would be left standing when the fires went out. Commander Veltar received the impossible report at 400 hours ship time. He read it 3 times before accepting what his eyes were telling him. They did what? He asked Sub-Commander Nithara. Human forces have successfully boarded and captured the cruiser Deathstrike, she repeated, her voice hollow. Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo led a boarding party using modified atmospheric shuttles. They are now in control of a Saurian warship. In 800 years of Saurian military history, no enemy had ever successfully captured one of their ships. The very idea was unthinkable. Saurian vessels were designed by apex predators for apex predators. The corridors were too narrow for most species, the gravity too high, the atmosphere wrong for nearly every form of alien life. But humans, it seemed, adapted to anything. How is this possible? Veltar demanded. The answer came from Captain Kim Dae-ho himself, his voice now broadcast from the captured Saurian ship, using their own communication systems against them. Attention, Saurian fleet. This is Captain Kim Dae-ho speaking from your former cruiser Deathstrike, which we have renamed Victory. Your ship designs are efficient but predictable. Your security protocols are thorough but inflexible. Most importantly, you assumed no enemy would ever be desperate enough to try boarding a ship in deep space. Veltar watched the tactical display, in disbelief as the captured cruiser, now under human control, began attacking other Saurian vessels. The humans had not only taken the ship, they had learned to operate it in less than 6 hours. All ships maintained defensive positions, he ordered. But even as he gave the command, he knew the humans had changed the rules of engagement forever. Lieutenant Park So-min coordinated the space-based offensive from the captured ship's bridge. Her tactical analysis was being broadcast to every human military unit, teaching them how to fight in zero-gravity environments. The enemy relies on energy shields that deflect kinetic weapons. Her voice reached human forces across the solar system. But the shields have gaps at weapon ports and docking bays. Concentrated fire at these points can penetrate their defenses. Within hours, human forces were building space-capable fighters using a combination of their own technology and captured Saurian equipment. The designs were crude but effective, and most importantly, they were produced at a speed that defied military logistics. Commander Lee Tae-jun had established the Human Defense Network, turning every human on Earth into an intelligence asset. Factory workers reported on Saurian equipment they were forced to maintain. Occupied civilians provided real-time information on enemy movements. Children drew maps of Saurian patrol routes and smuggled them to resistance cells. The enemy has established a supply depot in the Nevada desert, came one report from a 10-year-old human who had been watching Saurian ships through binoculars. 3 big ships land there every day at sunset. The information proved accurate. Human strike teams destroyed the depot 12 hours later. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee had made a breakthrough that changed everything. Her analysis of captured Saurian technology revealed a fatal flaw in their design philosophy. Their equipment is built for desert environments with stable conditions, she reported to human military commands worldwide. But they cannot adapt to rapid environmental changes. Recommendation: create rapid environmental fluctuations in all combat zones. Human forces began using weather modification technology, industrial cooling systems, and even controlled flooding to create conditions that Saurian equipment could not handle. Desert warriors found themselves fighting in artificial snowstorms, humid jungles, and underwater environments, Their technology was never designed for. The war had become something no Saurian strategist had ever imagined. Humans were hunting them. Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo led boarding actions against 3 more Saurian ships. Each assault was more efficient than the last as human forces refined their zero-gravity combat techniques. They moved through Saurian ships like they had been designed for space warfare, not evolved on a planetary surface. Target the environmental systems first, he instructed his teams. Drop the temperature, increase humidity, flood the corridors if possible. Make them fight in conditions that favor us, not them. The psychology of the war shifted. Saurian warriors who had never known fear began experiencing it for the first time. Their own ships had become hunting grounds where small, soft creatures emerged from ventilation systems and maintenance shafts to attack with weapons that should not have existed. Captain Kim Dae-ho coordinated a series of raids that struck at the heart of Saurian military doctrine. Rather than trying to hold territory, human forces focused on capturing technology, learning enemy procedures, and spreading that knowledge across their entire species. Every piece of equipment we take makes us stronger, he broadcast to human forces. Every Saurian facility we capture teaches us something new. We are not just fighting a war. We are earning a degree in advanced warfare, and the enemy is paying. Our tuition. The most disturbing aspect for the Saurians was human learning speed. A human soldier could observe a Saurian tactical procedure once and implement it within hours. Human engineers could reverse engineer alien technology and improve upon it within days. Human strategists could analyze Saurian battle plans and devise countermeasures within minutes. Lieutenant Park So-min demonstrated this terrifying adaptability when she used captured Saurian sensors to track their own fleet movements. Within a week, she was predicting Saurian tactical decisions with 90% accuracy. The enemy follows mathematical models for combat deployment. Her analysis reached human forces across the solar system. Their tactics are efficient but predictable. I am transmitting probability matrices for their next 6 operational decisions. She was right on all 6 predictions. War Prime Kethlon arrived from Saurian space with reinforcements, expecting to find a conquest in progress. Instead, he discovered a military disaster unlike anything in Imperial history. Explain to me, he said to Veltar on the secure command channel, how an invasion force of 12 dreadnoughts and 40 cruisers is being defeated by primitives who were using chemical rockets 3 months ago. Veltar had no answer that made sense. The humans had not just resisted invasion. They had turned warfare itself into a learning experience that made them more dangerous with each passing day. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee provided the final piece of the puzzle, with her psychological analysis of human warfare patterns. We do not fight wars to win territory. Her broadcast reached every human military unit. We fight wars to eliminate threats to our species. Every human who falls makes the survivors more determined. Every city they destroy unites us further. Every escalation teaches us new ways to hurt them. They started this war to conquer us. We will finish it to survive. The Saurian Empire faced something it had never encountered in 800 years of expansion. An enemy that became stronger through conflict rather than weaker. Veltar opened his war journal for another entry. His claws shook slightly as he activated the recording device. Day 21 of the Earth campaign. The humans have captured 4 of our ships, destroyed 6 others, and turned the rest of the fleet into hunted animals. They do not fight like prey species. They do not even fight like predators. They fight like evolution itself, adapting and improving with each encounter. He paused, watching sensor readings that showed human ships, built from captured Saurian technology, moving to surround his fleet. I am beginning to understand something terrible. We thought we came here to teach fear to a primitive species. Instead, we have taught warfare to something that was already perfectly designed for it. The humans were not weak because they lacked weapons. They were peaceful because they did not yet know what they were capable of. A new communication reached the Saurian fleet. It was Captain Kim Dae-ho, speaking from the captured ship Victory. Attention Saurian fleet, you came to our world to make us afraid. Instead, you have given us the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that we can defeat anyone who threatens our home. For this education, we thank you. Now, class is over. Time for your final exam. On every sensor screen, human ships appeared. Built from captured alien technology, crewed by beings who had learned to fight in space as easily as they fought on land, armed with weapons that combined human creativity with Saurian engineering. The hunters had become the hunted. And for the first time in his life, Commander Veltar understood what fear really meant. War Prime Kethalon stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed impossible things. In 30 years of commanding Saurian fleets, he had never seen anything like what these humans had done to his invasion. Force, report, he ordered Sub-Commander Nithara. The humans now control 8 of our vessels, including 2 dreadnoughts, she replied, her voice tight with something no Saurian warrior should feel. Terror. They have established orbital manufacturing facilities using our own technology. Production estimates suggest they are building new ships faster than we can replace our losses. This was beyond military disaster. This was evolutionary catastrophe. A species that had been using chemical rockets 6 months ago was now outbuilding the Saurian Empire in space-based construction. Captain Kim Dae-ho appeared on the main communication screen, speaking from the bridge of what had once been the Saurian dreadnought Worldbreaker. The humans had renamed it Hope. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. War Prime Kethalon, Kim Dae-ho said in perfect Saurian, I believe formal introductions are overdue. I am Captain Kim Dae-ho of the Earth Defense Force. 6 months ago, I was a special operations soldier who had never left his home planet. Today, I command a fleet built from your technology and crewed by my people. Thank you for the education. The human's calm confidence was more unsettling than threats would have been. Kethalon had faced desperate enemies, angry enemies, even insane enemies, but he had never faced an enemy who thanked him for the opportunity to fight. Lieutenant Park, Somin coordinated the human fleet movements with precision that defied everything Kethalon knew about space warfare. Her ships moved in formations that no military academy taught, using tactics that combined human intuition with alien technology in ways that should not have worked, but did. All human vessels, this is Fleet Command. Her voice reached dozens of ships that should not have existed. Execute Formation Delta. Show them what we learned from their own tactics. The human ships arranged themselves in a pattern that Kethalon recognized with growing horror. It was the Saurian Talon formation, perfected over centuries of space combat. But the humans had modified it, improved it, made it more deadly than the original. Commander Lee Tae-jun spoke from Earth's surface, where his resistance network had evolved into something resembling a planetary intelligence system. Every human on Earth was connected, sharing information at the speed of thought. Space Command, this is ground control. Saurian reinforcement fleet detected at system edge. ETA 18 hours. Recommend immediate implementation of welcome protocol. Kethalon watched with growing dread as human ships moved to positions that would force any incoming Saurian vessels to fight through a gauntlet of their own captured technology. The humans had turned the home field advantage against them. Dr. Yoon Ji-hae had established research stations throughout the captured Saurian ships. Her teams were not just studying alien technology anymore. They were improving it, combining Saurian engineering with human innovation to create weapons that neither species could have built alone. Analysis complete on enemy fleet psychology, she broadcast to human forces. Saurian military doctrine relies on overwhelming superiority and rapid surrender. They have no protocols for extended combat against adaptive enemies. Recommend psychological warfare focused on demonstration of human learning speed. She was right. Saurian warriors were trained for conquest, not survival. They understood how to break enemy morale. But they had no experience with enemies who grew stronger under pressure. Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo led assault teams that had perfected the art of boarding Saurian vessels. His troops moved through alien ships like they had been born in zero gravity, using captured equipment with deadly efficiency. Target their command centers last, he instructed his teams. Let them watch us take control of their own ship systems. Let them understand what helplessness feels like. The psychological impact was devastating. Saurian warriors found themselves trapped on their own ships, watching human soldiers operate alien technology better than they could themselves. It was a fundamental reversal of everything they understood about warfare. Kethlon received casualty reports that made no sense according to any military doctrine he knew. Human forces were not just winning battles. They were capturing everything. Ships, equipment, personnel, technology, and most importantly, knowledge. They are not fighting a war, he realized aloud. They are conducting the most extensive military education program in galactic history. Every battle teaches them something new about fighting in space. Captain Kim Dae-ho demonstrated this terrifying truth by coordinating an attack on the Saurian command station using tactics that combined human creativity with alien technology. His assault teams moved like a single organism, each soldier anticipating the other's actions through communication methods the Saurians could not intercept or understand. How are they coordinating so precisely? Kethlon demanded. Unknown, Nithera replied. Their communication patterns suggest some form of shared consciousness, but that is impossible for their species type. It was not shared consciousness. It was something more dangerous, shared purpose. Every human fighting in space was connected to every other human through bonds that went deeper than military discipline. They fought not just for victory, but for the survival of their entire species. Lieutenant Park So-min proved this when she coordinated a simultaneous strike against 12 Saurian positions, using ships crewed by humans who had never met, but moved together like parts of a single machine. All units, this is Fleet Command. Remember what they did to Mumbai. Remember what they threatened to do to our children. Show them what happens when you threaten a human family. The attack was not just militarily successful. It was personally motivated in ways that Saurian warfare had never encountered. Every human fighter carried the memory of orbital bombardment, of threatened families, of a species fighting for its right to exist. Commander Lee Tae-jun coordinated ground-based support for the space battle, but his role had evolved beyond military command. He had become the voice of human civilization, speaking for a species that had learned what it truly was through warfare. Saurian forces, he broadcast on all channels. You came to our world believing you were apex predators. You were wrong. There are no apex predators. There is only evolution, and you have just accelerated ours by several thousand years. We thank you for the lesson. Dr. Yoon Ji-hai provided the final analysis that explained what the Saurians were facing. Her research had revealed something that changed the fundamental nature of the conflict. Human military development follows exponential rather than linear progression, she reported to all human forces. Every challenge makes us not just stronger, but more capable of becoming stronger. The enemy has not just taught us to fight, they have taught us to learn, and learning is what humans do better than any species in the known galaxy. Kethlon stared at displays showing human ships built from Saurian technology, but designed with human innovation. They were better than the originals. More efficient, more powerful, more adaptable. The humans had not just captured Saurian equipment, they had perfected it. A new communication reached the Saurian fleet. It was not from any individual human commander, but from their entire species speaking with one voice. Saurian Empire, you sought to conquer a world of soft, weak creatures who had never left their home planet. Instead, you have created something that does not yet exist in your databases. A spacefaring human civilization with advanced military technology and the absolute determination to survive. You taught us that the universe is not safe. We will teach the universe that neither are we. Kethlon understood with crystal clarity that the Saurian Empire faced something completely outside their experience, not just military defeat, but the emergence of a new apex species that had learned warfare from the masters themselves. He opened a communication to the High Command on distant Saros Prime. This is War Prime Kethlon reporting from the Earth system. The invasion has failed. The humans are no longer primitive. They are no longer confined to their planet. And they are no longer afraid of us. He paused, looking at sensor readings that showed human ships preparing for what appeared to be offensive operations beyond their home system. Request immediate reinforcement of all border systems. The humans are coming. In the space around Earth, Captain Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked toward the stars. His species had learned what they were capable of. Now it was time to teach the galaxy. Commander Veltar stood in what had once been his command center and was now his prison. The human guards were polite but watchful, and they had learned to operate Saurian technology better than most Saurian engineers. Captain Kim Dae-ho entered, the room with the quiet confidence of someone who had discovered exactly what his species was capable of. "Commander," Kim Dae-ho said in flawless Saurian, "your fleet is preparing to leave our system. I wanted to speak with you before you go." Veltar looked at the human who had become the symbol of his species' greatest military disaster. Kim Dae-ho was still small by Saurian standards, still soft-looking, still lacking the natural weapons that marked true predators. But his eyes held something that made Veltar's warrior instincts recoil. "You have won," Veltar said simply. "What more do you want?" "Understanding," Kim Dae-ho replied. "Your species came here believing that fear was a weapon you used against others. I want you to understand what fear really means before you leave." Outside the windows, human ships moved in formations that combined Saurian engineering with human innovation. They were sleek, deadly, and built by a species that had learned warfare from masters and then surpassed them. Lieutenant Park So-min coordinated the escort operation that would ensure the Saurian survivors reached the edge of the system safely. Her voice carried across the communication channels with calm authority. "All vessels maintain escort formation. The Saurian fleet is departing under terms of surrender. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response." The irony was not lost on anyone. Human ships were protecting Saurian vessels from other human forces who wanted to finish what the Empire had started. It was mercy from a species that had learned it could afford to be merciful. Commander Lee Tae-jun spoke from Earth's surface, addressing not just the departing Saurians, but the entire galaxy. His words were being broadcast across every communication network the humans had captured or intercepted. To all civilizations within range of this transmission, Earth has survived its first contact with hostile alien life. We defended our world not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through the simple refusal to surrender. Let this be a lesson to any species that believes soft means weak, or peaceful means defenseless. Dr. Yoon-ji Hai had compiled her final report on the war. Her analysis would reshape human understanding of their own species for generations to come. Conclusion: humans are not naturally violent, but we are naturally adaptive. When faced with extinction, we do not break, we evolve. The Saurian invasion did not conquer us, it educated us. We learned that we are capable of anything when the survival of our species is at stake. Sergeant Cho Kyung-soo stood guard over Saurian prisoners who had been captured during boarding actions. Many of them looked at him with something approaching religious awe. They had watched him move through their ships like he was born for space combat, using their own weapons against them with terrifying efficiency. "How?" one young Saurian warrior asked him. "How did you learn so quickly?" Cho considered the question seriously. "Your people evolved to be perfect predators on one world. My people evolved to be perfect survivors anywhere. When you threatened our survival, you taught us that anywhere includes space." War Prime Kethlon sat in his command chair, watching. Tactical displays that showed the complete failure of the largest invasion fleet the Saurian Empire had ever assembled. Half his ships were destroyed. The other half were being escorted away by vessels built from captured Saurian technology and crewed by beings who had mastered space warfare in less than 6 months. "Sub-Commander Nithara," he said quietly, "transmit a message to the High Command. Tell them that the humans are no longer a primitive species confined to one world. Tell them that we have created something that does not exist in any database, a spacefaring human civilization with advanced military capabilities." Nithara hesitated. "War Prime, what are your recommendations regarding future contact?" Kethlon looked at the human ships surrounding his fleet. They could destroy every Saurian vessel in minutes if they chose to. Instead, they were providing safe escort to the system's edge. It was strategic thinking beyond anything he had expected from a species they had dismissed as primitive. Recommend immediate classification of human space as off-limits to all Imperial vessels, he said. Recommend establishment of buffer zones around known human territories, and recommend that any future contact be strictly diplomatic. Captain Kim Dae-ho returned to Veltar's detention area for a final conversation. The Saurian commander had been writing in what appeared to be a personal journal, documenting the war from his perspective. What will you tell your people about us? Kim, Dae-ho asked. Veltar set down his recording device and looked directly at the human. I will tell them the truth. That we came to your world believing fear was something we gave to others. We learned that fear is what the universe feels when it realizes that humans are no longer contained to one small planet. He paused, considering his words carefully. I will tell them that your species is not dangerous because you are violent. You are dangerous because you learn. Every challenge makes you stronger. Every enemy teaches you something new. Every defeat becomes education for future victory. Kim Dae-ho nodded slowly. And what will you tell them about fear? That fear was just a word until we went to war with humans, Veltar replied. Now it is the only word that matters when your species is mentioned in our databases. The Saurian fleet began its departure from the solar system. Human ships accompanied them to the edge of known space, ensuring they left peacefully, but also making it clear that Earth now had the capability to defend itself anywhere in the galaxy. Sub-Commander Nithara transmitted the final report to Saurian Command. Her words would change Imperial policy for generations. The human homeworld is no longer a target for conquest. Classification: apex predator species, spacefaring capability, extreme adaptation rate. Recommendation: avoid all contact unless absolutely necessary. If contact is required, approach as equals, not prey. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee stood in her laboratory, surrounded by Saurian technology that had been analyzed, understood, and improved beyond its original capabilities. Her final broadcast reached every human settlement on Earth and in space. We have learned something important about ourselves through this war. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest, the largest, or the most naturally armed, but we are the most adaptable. And in a universe full of challenges, adaptability is the ultimate weapon. Commander Lee Tae-jun addressed the United Nations in what would become known as the Species Survival Speech. 6 months ago, we were alone in the universe. Today, we know we are not alone, and we know that the universe can be hostile. But we also know something else: we can survive anything. We can adapt to anything, we can learn from anything, and most importantly, we can defend ourselves against anything. Captain Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking toward the stars where Saurian ships were disappearing into hyperspace. Lieutenant Park So-min approached with the final tactical report. All Saurian vessels have departed the system, she reported. No signs of pursuit or preparation for return. Good, Kim Dae-ho replied. But this was just the beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. There will be others who test us. Will we be ready? Park So-min asked. Kim Dae-ho smiled, thinking about everything his species had learned in 6 months of warfare. They had gone from a planet-bound civilization to a spacefaring military power that had defeated the most successful conquest fleet in galactic history. We will be more than ready, he said. We will be human. Commander Veltar made his final journal entry as his ship jumped to hyperspace. War Journal, final entry. The Earth campaign has ended in complete failure. But it was not truly a failure of military tactics or strategic planning. It was a failure of understanding. We believed that fear was something we gave to others. We learned that fear is what intelligent species feel when they encounter something that grows stronger through conflict. He paused, looking at the star-filled void ahead. I began this war believing that humans were soft, weak creatures who would surrender at the first show of force. I end it knowing that humans are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced. Not because they are violent, but because they are unstoppable learners. They turned our invasion into their education. They used our technology to become better than us, They took our greatest strength and made it their starting point. Another pause. Longer this time. Fear was just a word until I went to war with humans. Now I understand what fear really means. It means realizing that somewhere, in the galaxy, there is a small blue world full of beings who have learned that they can defeat anything that threatens them, and now they have the tools to prove it. He powered down the recording device and looked toward the distant stars where Earth waited. The humans would spread among those stars now, carrying with them the knowledge that they were capable of anything. The galaxy would never be the same. Fear was just a word until the universe went to war with humans. Now it was the only word that mattered.